I have people of all different ages on my AV team. We have people who are elderly and we have people who are in middle school and then everywhere in between. We have men, we have women, just a very diverse group of people on the AV team. And it's really cool to see that, like, oh yeah, anybody could do this.
Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers, where we go into the back office of ministry and learn how to uplift our church members and have an impact on our communities through technology. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io. You may only have 5 loaves or 2 fishes, but that's okay. God can use your experience in talents in church tech, like our guest today. Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers. Our guest today is Adam Vaughn, who has been involved in producing sound for movies for Paramount, Hulu, and BET. His work has been award-winning, and he currently is the service coordinator and media producer at Cornerstone West Los Angeles. Welcome, Adam.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So we like to talk to those folks that are just getting started in church tech. And you got 2 start points I'd like to talk about. First of all, how you got started in tech and media. And then second, how you get started in the church.
Yeah, so I would say they ultimately have the same starting point because it started at church and that gave me the love for tech and media that grew into my career. So when I was in 6th grade, our church that I grew up attending, they added an extra service and needed more volunteers. And the children's pastor approached me and said, "Hey, would you like to join the church media team running sound, lights, slides? I'll teach you how everything works." And I said, "No, thank you. I'm not interested." And my parents said, "No, you're going to do this because you need to help out at church." And so 2 weeks later, I said to the pastor, "Yeah, okay, I'll join." And I immediately fell in love with it. I've been doing sound, live production, post-production ever since the 6th grade. So I would say ultimately it all started in the 6th grade with my pastor just approaching me and then my parents kind of forcing me. And then I realized this is actually the coolest thing ever.
Now it's a career, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you work with a team of media people. What's your particular role?
So my role at Cornerstone West Los Angeles is the service coordinator and media producer, which is basically the audiovisual team lead. I'm the only person on staff. It's not a giant church. We have about 500 people on a Sunday morning. So I would call it medium size, might be large or small depending on the city that you're in. But I'm the only person on staff who's in charge of the audiovisual logistics of Sunday mornings and other events that happen on our campus. So as far as the church staff team, we have less than 20 employees on staff. And for volunteers, I have about 25 audiovisual volunteers, which is a pretty large team given the size of our church and how audiovisual volunteer recruiting tends to go.
Right. Yeah, so I got started early in church technology as well as my son, and it sounds like a lot of fun, right? And I remember my son got started when he was 12. But there are some days that's not so much fun.
Yes.
What is a challenge maybe you had to face and navigate through, and you made it through okay?
Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge, unfortunately, because we live in a fallen world, is the people. That's usually a big challenge, making sure everybody understands they're expected to show up on time, that they buy into the role that they have on a Sunday morning, that they take ownership of it to do it with excellence so that we have an exceptional worship service and connect people with God. The scheduling is always a bit of a challenge, especially in a busy city like Los Angeles. Most people have 3, 4, 5, maybe a dozen different commitments that they're trying to balance that might overlap with Sunday mornings. So that's probably the biggest thing. But from a technical perspective, We added a live stream in 2020. That's actually the year I was hired at Cornerstone West LA. I was hired specifically because we were adding a live stream to our services. I was already attending the church, but they needed some additional help with this new logistical element of their services. And every once in a while, we primarily live stream just to YouTube. And every once in a while, there will be an update on YouTube's end that's just behind the scenes somewhere that they don't notify anyone about because they don't really need to. It's just behind the scenes. But it changes something just enough that our live stream completely stops working and we don't find out until Sunday morning, and it requires an update of our live stream device, needs like new firmware, and then that means that I might have to update the computer that we're running on, because I tend to be hesitant to update as long as things are working well. And then once they stop working, that means, okay, got to update a few things. So those are usually a challenge. We also got a new internet system for the whole campus. That's a mesh system, which is a great upgrade. But there were some things with that new internet infrastructure that we had to work out with our live stream as well. So the live stream is a pretty big logistical beast, so to speak, but just a lot of patience, a lot of reading forums and reaching out to the manufacturer of different devices and getting help from others.
And everybody looks at you like you do nothing.
I wouldn't say that here. Our church is pretty good at recognizing the work I do. I think part of that's because it is a little bit more, well, it's not more visual now, but during 2020, so our church is fortunate enough, we have a large outdoor space. And so we were able to have outdoor services during the pandemic. And that meant we had to set up all of the audiovisual equipment outside every week. And so during those, it was like, I think 2 years that we did that. And then we continued some special services outside because it was a larger space. And so everyone who was like coming to church then could see like the volunteers setting up the gear and taking it down after service. And I think that really helped the church as a whole to see the audiovisual team and understand like, oh, they're actually putting a lot of work in before the service starts and after the service ends. And then they're running the service during the service. And I think that helped everyone in the congregation have a bit more of an appreciation for the work that we do.
Yeah, Philo, right? First in, last out.
Yep, that's us.
So in your 5.5 years there, how have you seen God step in and work and use the work of the team to impact the gospel?
So there's a couple different ways. A big way is just the enthusiasm that everybody on our team has. It's really cool when we have the holidays coming up, so we have some extra services we'll be doing. And so that's going to stretch the team a little bit thinner than usual. I usually try to only have one Sunday a month that each volunteer is scheduled for. But when we have extra services like a Christmas Eve service, or we'll do a midweek worship night occasionally, then those require extra volunteers. And so people might have to work 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a month, depending on how many services we have. And there's never been any complaints or grumbling about that extra work that they have. It's always an enthusiastic response. It might be, oh, I can't do that this week, but I could do next week. Or if I say, hey, I know you're scheduled 3 times this month, like, I just want to explain that we're stretched pretty thin. It's always a response of, oh, no, that's fine. I'm happy to help out. I love helping with the services. And so seeing how the gospel has changed their lives to now want to serve and help with the worship services that we have with enthusiasm and without complaining, and just that character that all of our volunteers have, is really cool to see, and something that I hope isn't rare, but I would think might be rare in the fallen world that we live in. So that would be one area. And then the other would be the way that God has actually used our live stream. I'm pretty technologically hesitant, I would say. I'm more of a late adopter. And with the live stream, I initially viewed it as like, oh, this might be something that keeps people from coming to church, or people view it as like a potential replacement for coming to a worship service when it's pretty inadequate for providing a worship experience. But what God has used it for has been almost an evangelism tool where people who might be new to Los Angeles or just new to our part of Los Angeles or new to Christianity, they are looking for a church and they pull up the live stream before attending a service in person. And that's a way for them to sort of virtually visit the church before they make the final decision of, am I going to visit there on a Sunday morning? And so it seems about half the people that are new to our church found us through the live stream first. And so that actually helped me reshape my perspective on the live stream to being like 99 to 100% against it, to where now I'm like, oh no, it's a great thing. It's very important. And we should make sure that it's as excellent as our services are in person, so that when people see it, they do want to come in person and get connected with their local church.
Wow. Wow. So what is your live stream setup?
So we use an iMac desktop and an A10 Mini Pro made by Blackmagic. And then we just live stream directly into YouTube. So it's a very simple setup. We used to use Restream during the pandemic, and we went to Facebook and YouTube. But now Facebook live streaming changed a lot. It wasn't as easy to use as YouTube. And we saw that our viewers on YouTube were way more than our viewers on Facebook. And so we decided we were going to drop Restream because we were paying for Restream. They gave us a very good discount for being a nonprofit, but it was still a cost that we had. And if we just live streamed to YouTube, we could still post that link on Facebook and invite people to join us on YouTube instead. And that just made the process a lot simpler. It made it simpler for the volunteers, and just like for everybody, it was a lot simpler just going straight to YouTube.
So you're bivocational. You do work with movies, as I mentioned in the introduction. Do you find advantages in learning on both sides, in the church and in the commercial work, how they complement each other?
Well, the work I do at church is pretty different than the work that I do in the film industry. For church, it's a lot of live production, and the film industry, if I'm on set, it's live production, but it's like holding a boom mic, putting microphones on actors. And then most of the work that I do in the film industry is post-production. So I'm doing sound editing and sound design, which there is some overlap there, because after the service ends, I mix the sermon and then we post the audio as a podcast online. And then we also have a podcast for the church that we produce like twice a month. So I do a lot of mixing between both in post-production, but I would say most things don't really overlap that much, other than like, oh yeah, the people tend to be like the most difficult part of the job, and so you need a lot of patience with that. And the gospel still influences my work, so I still pursue both things with excellence, that I'm not working for man but for God ultimately. And so I try to help that come across.
Well, ministries only exist because there's money, even though there's not a lot of it. And so how are you creative and using the technology with limited budget, yet, doing, like you said, excellence with what you have?
That is a good question. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we've had to do because of our limited budget. I've got a couple examples. So one of them would be in our sanctuary. We have a sanctuary that had a large pipe organ built into the back wall. So we've got giant pipes on the back wall of the sanctuary. And the whole room was designed to be an amplification for that pipe organ. So it's a very live room, we would say. And that presents some different problems. It means it tends to sound pretty good in there without a lot of audiovisual reinforcement. But we do have electric guitar, we have drums, we have a bass with a bass amp. And so it can get pretty loud sometimes. And so what we've done, instead of putting the drums inside an entire cage, because that's a bit expensive, we're getting these just round plastic shields that can go in front of the cymbal. And so we're basically having to figure out how we can target the loudest parts of the things that are on stage. So we're getting some shields to go in front of the cymbals specifically, because those tend to be the loudest part of our drum kit. And then we're also getting some shields that will go in front of the bass amp and the electric amp to help reduce the overall volume of things that are on stage. So those are some ways that we've been able to manage that without having to spend a ton of money. And then another thing is just me kind of trying to figure stuff out before we take stuff to a repair shop. So we have that live stream device, the A10 Mini Pro, and it's about 5 years old, almost 6 years old at this point. And so there's been occasional times where it stops working and I'm like, okay, is this a software issue? Is it not? And so I've actually taken it apart and looked at the inside to see, like, is something broken on the inside? Is it just super dusty? It needs to be cleaned out, and then put it back together. Turned out there was nothing wrong on the inside, which was great because I'm not sure I would have actually been able to fix it. Just, yeah, looking into things that I'm like, oh, I could just try and figure out how to fix this before I just ship it off to a repair stop and then have to pay a technician to fix things.
Yeah. A lot of commitment and dedication there. So, what do you do for training, and what do you do to provide training for your staff?
So for my volunteers, I developed a lot of training. I put a lot of thought into the training. So when I was hired on, it was during the pandemic, and we had a lot of very specific things that people had to learn. It was kind of like starting a new phase for the audiovisual team here, because we had a lot of people that had helped with the services leading up to the pandemic, but then we had only the live stream for a few months before we came back and we had in-person services that were now outdoors. And so we had a lot of people joining that were new for that, who had absolutely no experience with audiovisual stuff. They just were like, hey, I really care about this church and I want to help these services happen any way that I can. And so I had a training day for the outdoor service team, just showing everybody, hey, here's what a microphone cable is. Here's how it plugs in. Um, and yeah, just showing them how an audio system works and how to safely set up large speakers outside and take them down and where everything goes. I had to show them how a DI box works and all of those things. So a lot of it has been with training days. I also record a lot of videos. I found that it's pretty easy to just pull out my phone. I could like prop it up somewhere or do it like selfie mode or just take a video in front of me and just explain like, hey, I'm setting up the keyboard. You can see here, there's the left and the right. I'm going to plug the cables into the left and the right. Here's the direct box. You plug it in here. And this is how you do it every single week. Thank you guys for being on the team. And then you end it. And just send that out to all the volunteers ahead of time so that they can watch that and see like, oh, okay, this is really easy actually. I think that's actually the biggest thing. I want to make it as easy as possible for my volunteers, even before I start training them. So I have a checklist for every position that's in the sound booth. The audio volunteer has their own checklist, Slides has a checklist, and the live stream has a checklist. And I've made it as thorough as possible. I've even had some other people on staff that aren't as technologically gifted go through the checklist and they're able to do it. And so that shows me like, okay, this is going to work, because if they can do it, then anybody on the AV team can do it. When we had the outdoor services, I actually color coded the soundboard and the snake that we had, because we had a 50-foot snake going up to the stage. And so I just put colored stickers on each channel. So like 1 was red, 2 was green, etc. And then I put those same colored stickers on the soundboard for channel 1, channel 2. And then the cables also, we had cables rigged under the stage outside. We just had hooks under the stage. But I put little zip ties that were colored on those cables. So it basically became like our stage boxes, but they were just loose cables under the stage where you could pull out a cable and see, oh, this is the green cable. it needs to plug into the green channel on the snake, and then that's going to work on the green channel on the soundboard. And then whoever was running sound didn't have to really worry about the colors. They could focus on like actually labeling things, which a really cool tip for if you have an analog soundboard where your inputs change. So on a digital soundboard, you can change the name of each channel because it's a computer. But on an analog mixer, you can't do that because there's no computer built in. So they make dry erase tape, which is really cool. I bought a roll and I keep it in the booth. It comes super handy. I just put a strip of dry erase tape across the bottom of the mixer right next to all the channels. And then you can use a dry erase marker and label every channel however you want, and then just erase it. And next week, if you have a different setup, you can write in all your inputs fresh. And so we used that for the outdoor services. I put that dry erase tape all over the mixer. I was like, this is going to be a mixer you can write anywhere you want. So we could label the outputs very easily. We could label the monitor mixes really easily. And then if something changed the next week, you could just erase it and draw in whatever it is this week. So just being creative with like different things that make it easier for the volunteers so that they can see like, oh, I don't have to know how a patch system works for an audio soundboard. I just have to know red goes with red, green goes with green. And the microphone goes on the stand and then you plug in the mic. That's all I need to know. I can do that. That's easy. So that's been a huge part of it, just figuring out how to make things easier for the volunteers, and almost like having to get out of my own headspace of like, I've done this for 17, 18 years. I know the lingo. I know what an XLR is and a TRS and all of this stuff. But these volunteers that I'm working with most of the time, they don't know the difference between a mic cable and an instrument cable. If you ask them, can you over under this cable? They don't know what that means. And so I just have to think like someone who's not an audio professional and think what would be an easy way for me to get them to do the thing that they need to do every week without having to teach them all this extra stuff that makes it a much larger barrier to entry to join the team. So I just try to lower that barrier to entry. And I think part of that's because I don't think I'm super special. And if I can learn how to do this, I think anybody else can too. They just need the right teacher and the right system to explain it to them.
Wow. That's really cool advice there on the training part. Yeah. So you're bivocational and volunteering at the church and being a leader is a lot of responsibility. What's that passion that drives you to do that?
I honestly think it's just a God-given passion that he's given me. Like I said, in the sixth grade, I wasn't really enthusiastic to start. My parents just were like, hey, you got to do this. And then just by God's grace, I was just kind of forced into it and fell in love with it. He had a plan that was bigger than my plan, as he always does. And yeah, I don't know, like I've never been able to be like, oh yeah, I think this way. And so that's why I like sound. I just think it's cool. Sound is really fascinating. Obviously, there's more to church tech than just sound. There is slides, which I think is super important. And there's the lights, and we have live streams now. So there's camera work involved and all these different things. But I'm also a sound professional outside of church. So that's where I tend to have the most emphasis. But it's kind of cool to be like, this is something that most people don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but we're all working really hard. And when it all goes smoothly, there's no distractions in the service, everyone can focus on worshiping our Savior. That is the best thing, because that's ultimately the goal, is that we all just get to worship Jesus together. And so being able to provide, or I guess help provide, a better experience for that is a cool thing. I think that can only come from God ultimately.
So for that person who maybe is sixth grade and being asked to join, or maybe they're an adult, be kind of iffy. Maybe they're a little fear of tech, but realize it's important. And they're thinking about joining church tech. Can you speak to them?
Yeah, I would say talk to whoever leads the tech team at your church and just ask them like, What's it like joining the team? What is your training process like? And see what sort of infrastructure they have set up already for onboarding their team. It can seem like it's a lot to learn, but you don't have to learn everything right away. One of the things that we do is if someone has like no experience at all, I usually start them with learning slides because I say if you can read and you have one finger, you can run slides. And it really is like, hopefully, if I know if I've done everything right, that's all you need. Sometimes things go wrong and someone else needs to step in. But yeah, I don't think it's as hard as everyone thinks it is. It's very important, that's for sure, because if something goes wrong, it's a distraction for everyone in the service, especially on slides. If that lyric slide changes too late, people don't know what the next words are in the song. Now, people who have gathered for the purpose of singing together in corporate worship are not singing together in corporate worship because they don't know what the words are. So make sure you're on it with the slides. It's very important, but it's not super difficult. You can learn how to mix, you can learn how to get good camera angles on the live stream. You can even learn your own sort of style for slides and make it your own. It's not something where, oh yeah, I'm going to learn it and then I just have to do the same thing every week. No, you can put your own personality, your own uniqueness that God has given you can come out in the service as you're ultimately helping lead worship with the rest of the team. It's pretty easy as long as you just take it one step at a time. And you don't have to learn everything in the booth. Maybe you just learn slides and that's your thing because you really enjoy slides. Or maybe you think, oh, I'm good with taking photos and like videos of things. So maybe I'll learn the live stream. There will be a little bit of technical stuff you have to learn, like how you set up the YouTube link and everything. But those are also just procedures. So just bring a pad of paper and write down every step. Or if they have checklists, read the checklist, take a photo of it, and maybe write things in your own words. It's just like learning anything else. You just need someone to teach you, and you just need to ask the right questions, and that'll help you learn really fast. I have people of all different ages on my AV team. We have people who are elderly and we have people who are in middle school, and then everywhere in between. We have men, we have women, just very diverse group of people on the AV team. And it's really cool to see that, like, oh yeah, anybody could do this. And yeah, it's just really cool to see how like anybody can do it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much today, and especially helping us understand how easy it is to join the team, how to work with the team, train the team. It's a lot of good information there. If folks wanted to reach out and connect with you, is there a way?
Yeah, so you can just send me an email. That's probably the best way if I don't know you to reach out to me. My email is adam@cornerstonewla.org because the church is Cornerstone West LA. So cornerstonewla.org. And my name's Adam. So that's how you get my email.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We appreciate you leaving a review, liking, and sharing this podcast wherever you have joined us. I'm looking forward to next week here on Church Tech Careers as we navigate the back office of ministry and how we can have an impact on our community and uplift the members of our local church. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io.